This is Michael Smith of MedPage Today. I'm in Chicago at the annual meeting of the American Society of Clinical Oncology, and I'm here today with my colleagues, Crystal Phend and Charlie Bankhead. We're going to just run through a couple of the things we picked up as kind of interesting out of this 4 or 5 day meeting. Crystal, what sort of struck your fancy in the first couple of days of the meeting?
Well, I covered the MAP3 study, which is using exemestane, aromatase inhibitor, for primary prevention of breast cancer. And many researchers, breast cancer specialists, characterize this as potentially practice-changing. The results showed that there was a 65% reduction in the annual incidence of invasive breast cancers with the drug compared to placebo. And currently, tamoxifen and raloxifene are used in this setting, but there may be a difference in the side effect profile that would make an aromatase inhibitor potentially the preferred agent.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a pretty dramatic reduction. Yeah. Charlie, what struck your fancy?
I was particularly struck by the results from a trial of vimurafenib, which is a BRAF inhibitor. A major trial of metastatic melanoma was reported here at the meeting, and the investigators were using words like astounding to describe the results. The follow-up is very brief, but it is a phase 3 study, and the 6-month survival, there's a 20% absolute difference between the treatment groups, which is really almost unheard of in a trial involving late-stage cancer.
Charlie, where is that in the clinical process?
It is still in the approval process. It has not been submitted yet. One of the principal investigators said he would not be surprised to see it available perhaps within a year.
Mm-hmm. Well, interesting. One of the things that struck me, this was a study presented here and also published in the New England Journal concerning the monoclonal antibody, and I'm going to try and say this clearly, ipilimumab, which was given in combination with a cytotoxic agent, also in metastatic melanoma. In this case, patients previously untreated. And of course, as you know, that's a very, very tough group of patients to treat. They don't live very long, regardless of what you do. This actually showed not bad improvement. Their overall survival, patients getting the antibody, was 11.2 months, and that was about 2 months more than the 9.1 in the other arm, which was essentially a placebo plus the cytotoxic agent. So that was kind of a nice step forward. Whether it's going to be as dramatic and as astounding as the drug you're talking about is another question. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Crystal, you've been running around the hallways. What else have you found?
Well, there was another study. This one was actually presented at the plenary session. It was a study using extended adjuvant imatinib for high-risk gastrointestinal stromal tumors, GIST. And there was a substantial improvement in overall survival, which had not been expected. They expected an improvement in progression-free survival, recurrence-free survival, but so I think that based on these results, the researchers and other experts in the field were saying that 3 years may become the standard of care now, compared with the 1 year that had been standard. So clinically practice-changing results.
Again, that's Gleevec, of course, and we've found that to be useful in a number of diseases, I think, at this point. Charlie, anything else?
Yes, I was particularly struck by results reported with an agent called cabozantinib, which is being tested in a variety of solid tumors. The results that caught my attention were those in castration-resistant prostate cancer. A study showing a 97% clinical benefit rate, meaning that that was a complete and partial remission plus stable disease. So only a handful of patients did not derive some type of benefit from treatment, which is really good news in castration-resistant prostate cancer, because there have until recently been so few options for those patients. And so this is looking quite good, but again, it's still in fairly early stage of development, so the investigators did not give me any idea of when it might be available, but given the results that were reported here, I'd be surprised if it didn't get on a fast track fairly soon.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to finish this up, and I'm going to go back to this this antibody theme. In multiple myeloma, there are a number of antibody approaches, and of course we've all seen the success of rituximab in B-cell diseases. And the suggestion was that we might be coming up to a rituximab for multiple myeloma. There were 3 presentations. There was a drug called elotuzumab, and there was one called lorvatuzumab mirtazine. And you have to have the second part because it's a conjugate, it's an antibody-drug conjugate. And then there was a drug which actually doesn't have a name yet. It's got a couple of letters and a bunch of numbers, LY2127399, and that, of course, is something to conjure with. The interesting thing about these antibodies is they don't seem to have a whole lot of anti-tumor activity on themselves, but they do seem to have synergistic effects with drugs, and they were all given with other drugs. In a couple of cases, lenalidomide, the thalidomide derivative, and in the other case, bortezomib or Velcade. So they're in the early stages. The first one, elotuzumab, is actually in phase 3s, but this was a phase 1/2 that they were reporting. Results looked actually quite promising for that drug. They were getting something like an 82% response rate in these patients, and that's again nothing to be sneezed at. But it's been an interesting meeting. There's been lots of stuff as usual, and as usual, we've barely scratched the surface of the science presented here. In Chicago, I'm Michael Smith with Charlie Bankhead and Crystal Phend for MedPage Today.